All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us today for yoga. Um, and this is a yoga with the focus on healing and dealing with anxiety and grief. And we have a special guest instructor with us today, Miss Shayla, who goes by the Urban Hippie Goddess on Instagram. So please follow her if you are on Instagram. And Shayla has a unique story. I've practiced yoga with, a few different instructors, but there's a different connection that exists with this instructor, being that mostly everyone on the call has suffered a loss in some way. Shayla also has a unique understanding of our experience, and so she will gently guide us through that experience and through some healing poses and meditations that can help us through this process. She's going to share a little bit today before we get started just about how her process of healing has been, just a little brief, just to let you know you're in good hands. All right, Miss Shayla.
Yes, so welcome. I am so happy to be here today. Well, it's kind of hard to where to get to start. I am a registered yoga teacher. I do own my own business, Urban Hippie Healing Arts, but I am also a registered yoga teacher with Embody Yoga, that's based out of Milwaukee. Um, for me, I personally utilize yoga to help me with my own personal healing process. About 2 years ago, my 15-year-old son died of suicide. Um, and rewind from that, 8 years prior to that, I had a boyfriend who was killed by the gun violence in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So for me, I had to find something that would allow me to ground those tough energies and things of that particular nature. So I decided to start my path or my self love journey and begin to practice yoga. I have found that yoga has helped tremendously with me processing those strong emotions, but also finding purpose behind my story. Um, so today I'm definitely here to share with you some poses, some meditations, some techniques that I have found that have been very, very useful with just guiding me through this particular process, but also giving me that grounding. And then also what I like to do is raise the awareness of depression, anxiety, and things of that particular nature, and how yoga helps tremendously, like with that particular process. So that's why you have me today. And it's definitely a pleasure. So we can definitely go ahead and get started.
All
So
right.
um, if you have not done so, you may want to grab like a yoga strap, a towel, or even like a jump rope or things of that particular nature. And we'll get started with the movement.
I used a scarf the other night, so if you have like a scarf, this will work as well as a strap. I'm gonna mute everybody, and then we'll get started. Shayla, can you turn on a light? Because you're like a silhouette, you're really
Yes,
dark.
I'm sorry. And that's what I was trying to. I don't know if you can see me a little bit. Can you see me better, or is it still dark?
It's still dark, but you know what, it's fine. We'll see the movements.
So I would like for you guys to all come into a nice seated position. So a nice cross-legged seated position. And we're just going to take a moment just to ground and just to arrive to the mat. Resting the palms to face down on tops of the knees if you feel that you need some grounding energy. Or you can face the palms up if you feel that you need some receiving energy. And once you have found a comfortable position, you can go ahead and close the eyes. Just taking a couple moments to arrive to the mat. Allowing the breath to be normal. Taking nice, smooth inhalations in, followed by smooth exhalations out. Just taking a moment to check your alignment, making sure that the crown of the head is floating over the base of the spine. The space in between the eyebrows is soft. You're unclenching the jaw. The shoulders are resting a comfortable distance away from the ears. I'm just taking a moment just to be before we begin our practice. Now, before we begin with any type of movement in yoga, we like to begin this practice with deepening that breath. So we're taking a nice deep inhalation in and exhaling completely out. On your next inhale, allow for that breath to fill the belly. And now the ribs. And lastly, the collarbones. And now exhaling completely out. Collarbones, ribs, and belly. Continuing with that breath, inhaling in, drawing that breath all the way up through the base of the spine, all the way up to the crown of the head. And now exhaling completely out. You will notice that the heart will lower and the navel will draw into the spine. Taking one more round of breath, inhaling in, taking up space in the belly. And now the ribs. And lastly, the collarbones. And exhaling completely out. Collarbones, ribs, and belly. Beautiful. And now with releasing the arms down by the sides, we're going to continue that breath, but now we're going to add the flow of the arms. So taking a nice inhale in, slowly begin to sweep those arms all the way up, allowing the palms to touch. And let's use that exhale to drag those hands down through heart center. And let's continue with that movement. Inhaling, circling those arms up, taking up space, allowing those palms to touch. And exhaling those hands down through heart center. One more round. Inhaling, circling those arms all the way up, allowing the palms to touch. And using that exhale to drag those hands down through heart center, bowing the forehead to the fingertips, and taking a moment to set an intention for your practice this afternoon, allowing for that intention to be a dedication to your loved one, an affirmation, or even a prayer. So please just take a couple moments to set your intention on why you've come to practice this afternoon. And once that intention has been set, you can use that inhale to slowly lift the gaze, blinking the eyes open, releasing the arms down by the mat. And let's go ahead and make our way up to a nice tabletop position. So in that tabletop position, the hands should be spread nice and wide. The legs are parallel to each other. The backs of the feet are planted down to the earth. And let's warm up that spine with a couple of rounds of cat and cow. So taking a nice deep inhale in, begin to pull that belly down to the mat, sending those seat bones high, shining that heart forward, coming into a nice cow pose. And now using that exhale to drop that head around the back, flowing into that nice cat pose. Continuing with that movement, inhaling in, sinking that belly down, sending those seat bones high. And exhale, pushing into those hands, rounding the back. One more round. Inhaling in. And exhaling completely out. And now with returning back to a nice neutral tabletop position, nice flat back. Let's go ahead and curl those toes underneath. Lift those hips up and back, and let's come into our first downward facing dog. So in this downward facing dog, this is an inverted V-shaped pose. The feet should be spread about hip width distance. Hands are spread nice and wide. And just take a moment to pedal out the feet, to explore some movement. And now with becoming still in that downward facing dog, let's slowly begin to tiptoe to the top of the mat or your towel. You're gonna meet me in a nice halfway lift, a nice flat back. So you can bring the hands to the shins, or if you have that mobility, maybe the hands rest down to the earth. Feeling that nice stretch all along in the hips and the hamstrings. Today, our focus is going to be hip opening. It's said that we hold most of our emotions, any type of traumatic experiences and things of that nature, we hold most of those emotions in our hips. So we're going to work on today loosening up those emotions and letting them go. And now let's use that exhale to fold it forward and down, seeing if you can take a nice deep forward fold. Breathing. Nice smooth inhalations in, followed by smooth exhalations out. Inhaling up to that halfway lift, nice flat back. Feeling that nice stretch all along in the hamstrings and the hips, as well as in the lower back. Let's use that exhale to fold it forward and down. Let's take one more round of that halfway lift. Halfway lift. Inhaling, nice flat back. Feeling that nice stretch. And exhale, folding it forward and down. And with your next inhale, rooting through the four corners of the feet, let's rise, sweeping the arms up, coming up to standing, bringing the palms to touch. And let's use that exhale to bring those hands down to heart center. Let's continue with that movement. Inhale, sweeping the arms all the way up. Let's use that exhale to hinge from those hips, folding it forward and down. Inhaling up to that halfway lift. Exhale, fold it forward and down. And on an inhale, let's rise, sweeping the arms all the way up. Exhaling the hands to heart center. And let's add on to there, moving into a full sun A. Inhale, sweeping those arms all the way up. Exhale, hinging from those hips, folding forward and down. Inhaling up to that halfway lift. Now with planting the hands down to the mat, let's step back to a nice high plank. And let's hold this high plank. If you like, you're more than welcome to drop the knees. Taking a nice inhale in. Let's use that exhale to lower all the way down to our belly. Flipping to the tops of the feet. Taking a nice inhale in and shining that heart forward in a nice cobra pose. Exhaling back down. Let's use that inhale to shine that heart forward, but this time let's send the gaze over to the right shoulder. Feeling that nice side body stretch. Exhaling back down. Inhaling back up, now sending that gaze to the left shoulder. Exhaling back down. And now with flipping to those tippy toes, let's send those hips up and back, coming into a nice downward facing dog. Exploring some movement, maybe walking out the feet. And now becoming still in your downward facing dog, sending the gaze to the top of the mat. You can walk, step, or hop, meeting me in a nice halfway lift. Exhale, fold it forward and down. And on an inhale, let's rise, sweeping the arms all the way up. Exhaling those hands to heart center. And let's move into a nice mini flow. Let's use that inhale to sweep those arms all the way up. Exhale, hinge from those hips, fold it forward and down. And now with planting the hands down to the mat, let's take a big step back with that left foot. So that now we're in a nice high lunge. Now with spinning that back foot down, the goal is to have a heel to arch alignment with the feet. When you have that, let's windmill that left arm up, coming into a nice warrior two. Taking a moment to really sink down into that warrior two, making sure that that knee is opening up to the pinky toe side of the mat and that back leg is nice and strong. The arms are parallel to the earth and the gaze is gazing over the fingertips and just holding. Really getting into those hips. Maybe sinking a little deeper into that pose. And now let's go ahead and flow this. Let's flip that front palm up and let's sweep it up and back, coming into a nice reverse warrior. And let's use that exhale to bring that right forearm, setting it right on top of that right knee and sweeping that left arm forward, coming into a nice extended side angle. And let's flow this a couple more times. Inhaling up, reverse warrior. Exhaling, extended side angle. One more round. Inhaling up, reverse warrior. Exhaling, extended side angle. Inhaling up, warrior two, just for a moment. We're going to windmill those hands down to the mat, pivot that back foot, step that right foot back to meet that left, and let's move through a vinyasa. Inhaling in, using that exhale to lower all the way down to our belly. Inhaling up to cobra, or if the spine feels right, you can stand on those hands. Lifting the thighs off of the earth, coming into a nice upward facing dog. And exhaling back, downward facing dog. For 5 breaths. Smooth inhalations in, followed by smooth exhalations out. And now it's sending that gaze to the top of the mat. You can walk, step, or hop, meeting me in a nice halfway lift. Planting those hands down to the mat. And this time we're going to take a nice big step back, with that right foot. We're in this nice high lunge, spinning that back foot down for that heel to arch alignment. And when you have it, windmill that right arm up, coming into a warrior two on that left-hand side. Taking a moment to check that alignment. Making sure that knee is opening up to that pinky toe side of the mat. Back leg is nice and strong. And arms are parallel to each other, to the earth, I'm sorry. With gazing over to the fingertips. And let's go ahead and flow this. So flipping that front palm up, let's sweep that left arm up and back, coming into a nice reverse warrior. Exhaling, bringing that forearm to that left knee and sweeping that right arm to the front, extended side angle. Inhaling up, reverse warrior. Exhaling, extended side angle. One more round. Inhaling up, reverse warrior. Exhaling, extended side angle. Inhaling back up to warrior two. Windmilling those hands down to the mat. Pivoting that back foot up. Stepping that left foot back to meet the right and moving through your vinyasa. Using that exhale to lower. The inhale to take whatever back bend you like, whether that's cobra or upward facing dog. Exhaling those hips up and back, downward facing dog. For 5 breaths. And now let's all drop the knees down to the mat, bringing the big toes to touch. Splaying the knees the width of the mat and dropping those hips down and back, coming into a nice child's pose. Really getting into those hips as well as in the spine. And let's go ahead and activate this child's pose by coming to the pads of those fingertips, really extending those hands to the tops of the mat while bowing that forehead down. And just breathing. Returning back to that breath, using the inhale to lift the gaze. And now let's slowly begin to walk the hands all the way over to the right, while slightly reaching that left hand a little bit further than that right hand, bowing that forehead down, and now feeling that nice stretch on the left hand side. Returning back to that breath, using the inhale to lift that gaze, walking the hands through center, walking them now all the way over to the left, reaching that right hand slightly further and bowing that head back down. Returning back to that breath, using that inhale to lift the gaze, walking the hands back through center, floating up through tabletop, spinning the legs around, and coming to a nice seated position. In this seated position, we're going to prepare for a nice straddle pose. So go ahead and splay the legs as wide as they will go. Being sure to flex the feet so the toes are pointing up to the ceiling. And with taking a nice inhalation in, we're going to use that exhale to fold from the hips all the way down to your level, which that level can be at any level. So you can actually stay upright, come down halfway, or if you have that flexibility or mobility, you can see if you can bring the forehead all the way down to the earth. So take whatever you need out of this pose. We will be here for a few moments, just allowing the body to open. Also remember, if you find that emotions come bubbling up, such as anger, sadness, anxiousness. Again, emotions is where we hold most of our trauma at. So we're just working to release some of that. This is a great time to revisit the intention that was initially set. Being gentle with yourself. And just be. We have about another minute and a half left in this pose. Returning back to that breath. Taking nice, smooth inhalations in, followed by smooth exhalations out. Completing 3 rounds of breath. Finishing up with 1 last round. Inhaling in. And exhaling completely out. And on your next inhale, you can slowly begin to lift the gaze. Coming to a nice upright seated position. Using the hands to draw the knees close. And let's go ahead and open up for a nice butterfly pose. So bringing the soles of the feet together. Just taking a moment to counter that straddle pose. Closing the eyes. Just being. Just feeling. Becoming present. Feeling everything that you are. Feeling the gift that you are. Feeling your power. Your magic. Your beauty. Understanding that your experiences, they don't necessarily define where your future is headed. Just take a moment just to be thankful for it all. Just taking a moment to take 5 rounds of breath. Nice, smooth inhalations in, followed by smooth exhalations out. Using the inhales to breathe in light, love, healing energy. And the exhales to release any blockages, negative energy. Inhaling in. And exhaling completely out. 2 more rounds. Inhaling in. And exhaling completely out. One last round. Inhaling in. And exhaling completely out. And on your next inhale, you can blink the eyes open. Using the hands to draw the knees closed. And let's extend those legs nice and straight. We're going to use that inhale to sweep the arms all the way up. And that exhale to hinge from the hips, folding forward and down. And with your next inhale, slowly begin to roll up one vertebrae at a time. And let's come into a nice Sukhasana position or cross-legged seated position. Just preparing to end our practice. For this practice, I'm not called to end this in the traditional Shavasana way of laying down. I think sitting in this nice Sukhasana position, just giving us some time, is what's needed. So go ahead and come into this nice Sukhasana position or cross-leg, crisscross applesauce position. Resting the palms on tops of the knees to face down. Or if you like, you're more than welcome just to rest the hands in the laps. Just taking a moment just to be. Allowing the breath to be normal. Nice, smooth inhalations in. Followed by smooth exhalations out. Now, slowly begin to bring your awareness back to this space. Begin to take in the sounds of the room. Becoming aware of the different sensations that you may be feeling. Now, with bringing the hands to heart center in prayer position, bowing the forehead to the fingertips. Yogis, queens, goddesses, givers of life, I thank you so much for allowing me to guide you through this beautiful practice. I hope that your bodies feel good. I hope that your minds feel clear. I hope that your spirit feels refreshed. Know that the divine light in me honors, respects, and sees the divine light that's within each of you. From my heart to yours, namaste.
Wow. That was so peaceful, so beautiful. Go ahead, guys, if you want to unmute yourselves and share about your experience today.
Yeah.
Any feedback? How was it? How did you guys feel? So I have to unmute them.
Well, my body really, really needed that.
Yay.
It made me realize that my hips are really tight and that it would be really good to practice this every day just for the sake of my body. I did have a little bit of grief come up just because a lot of the time I try to spend more time out of my body than in my body.
Right, right.
So when I do yoga, a lot comes up for me.